7:01, I will call the Board of Sewer Commissioners to order for March 26th for the town of Bourne, 2024. All right. If anyone from the public wishes to access the meeting, they can do so by calling the following conference line, 1-929-205-6099. The Zoom meeting ID is 884-3036-4341, and the password is sewer, all capitals. All items within the meeting agenda are subject to deliberation and votes by the Board of Sewer Commissioners. First, I'd like to take a moment to send condolences and wishes to all the folks at the bridge collapse in Baltimore. Quite a terrible thing. I understand there were workers on the bridge as well as folks trying to get to and from work. So our wishes to them. And now a moment of silence to recognize our troops and public safety personnel. And a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I apologize to everyone. I was a minute late.
It's okay.
Tonight's meeting should be somewhat brief. We have a small agenda this evening, although some of the items are a little bit important. First thing will be the reading of the vision and the mission. Would anybody like to read? Peter?
Sure. We do our vision first. Bourne is a proud community that embraces change while respecting the rich heritage of the town and its villages. It is a municipality based on strong fiscal government with a durable economy that recognizes the rights of all citizens, respects the environment, especially the coastal areas of the community, and the amenities that it affords. Bourne embraces excellent education and offers to citizens a healthy, active lifestyle. In our mission statement, Bourne will maximize opportunities for social and economic development while retaining an attractive, sustainable, and secure coastline environment for the enjoyment of residents and visitors. Through responsible and professional leadership and in partnership with others, Bourne will strive to improve the quality of life for all residents living and working in the larger community.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, we'll jump right into this. We have preliminary sewer allocation request for 328 Main Street. Did everybody get a chance to look at this? So I just want to clarify, for those of you at home who may have put this into your GPS, it comes up right next to the Liberty Liquors, which would be the Mass Maritime Building. It is not. If you scroll down and look at the documents, this is actually next to the new gas station, directly adjacent, basically, and behind it, if you will. So that gives you a little bit of an idea where this is, and then I will turn it over to Matt to walk us through the allocation.
So as Chair McDonald said, it is 328 Main Street, which is directly next to 340 Main Street. It's actually the same owner. The owner that owns 340 Main Street purchased 328 Main Street. It's a half-acre parcel, and they're looking to put a 7-unit, 14-bedroom building, and they're looking for 1,540 gallons per day of sewer allocation. The representative from the company was unable to come this evening. He did supply a letter, just a brief history on the project.
Okay.
I hand-delivered it to you in your packets.
Yep.
Part of this project, now that they've included it with 340 Main Street, 340 Main Street was going to increase the size of the pipe, part of their project when they were completely built out. 340 Main Street is the Intramart. There's currently a restaurant with 51 seats and a vacant restaurant. And then they're going to be developing a parcel behind it too, of residential units. when they supplied the plan to us, they also, for 328 Main Street, they also mentioned upsizing the pipe and put some calculations and some plans in there to upsize the low-pressure force main. If this project's approved, I'd like to do a peer review on the pipe sizing and make sure it's acceptable. Something else I was hoping to consider is asking the owner of 340 Main Street to possibly amend his allocation and review what he's gonna do with the second restaurant. This came up at the last meeting.
Yes.
Where they only really have 9 seats left. So if we're gonna do a peer review of the pipe sizing, we may wanna ask him to amend or at least look at his allocation, make sure he sufficiently has what he needs.
Well, I think that's not only fair, but it's necessary, especially since the owner is both. And if you look at the plans for their future plans with the 2-unit condos, if you will, that they're looking to do in the future, I think it's probably necessary before we go too far. Do we even want to approve this tonight before we look into pipe size and where we're at with that? Because that may, if we're not going to have the ability to combine it with the 2 restaurants, the mini mart, and then the projected units behind it, we may have to go with 2 connections. I understand they're trying to save connections, and I'm okay with that, and I get it. But I think being owner of both properties, and I leave it up to the board as a whole, I'm just throwing this out there, I don't know that we want to approve this tonight based on that. I agree with you. I think we need to make sure that the pipe size and the pumps and everything is, significant enough to handle everything based on projections. And I appreciate that they sent us their projected plans. I think that's important. I'm just not sure if we want to go ahead and commit ourselves to this before we decide whether or not we're going to need more than 1 connection.
Okay.
Motion that we continue
Well,
the,
Hold on, no, but I want to ask first, Matt, in your opinion, is it an option that we can use the 1 connection? Is it theoretically an option?
I think we could,
Because there's an awful lot going on now. You got 2-unit condos projected for behind. You've got this 7-unit, and then you've got the mart with the 2 restaurants.
you're probably gonna want 3 connections, so they can all be isolated.
I think that's probably more realistic, and that's why I bring this up. I don't think 1 connection for all of this is necessarily going to work. MJ?
do we need that information in order to approve an allocation? I mean, the planning and what it's gonna look like, does that normally come after? Or does that normally come as part of the allocation? I mean,
So as far as sewer goes, we can approve the allocation, but the plan to connect has to have a stipulation to it. And that's where I'm going with this. We can either stay it, or we can approve it so that they can continue forward. Without a representative here, it's hard to ask, what their plan is as far as speed on the project. But I know, in my mind, I think that there's going to be more than 1 connection necessary.
I did have a conversation with the gentleman, the consultant, and he was willing to come to the next meeting, discuss anything. I did explain to him we'd probably want a peer review, so that wouldn't come as a surprise to him. And I also mentioned the allocation to 340 Main Street. So
Okay.
there's time. It sounded like they would be happy to come in April.
So,
I have a question on this. It says 990 gallons per day approved 5/30/2023. It's in the comments. So is this like, are they asking for 1,540 additional, or are we just increasing it by the difference between 990 and 1,540? And I think they should come, I think there's questions about this, and they should come back and hopefully get, some more information about what the requirement is for 340, what that's gonna be.
can you clarify the 1540? I think that's
Yes.
that's current required, what
So-
they're looking for, correct?
Yeah, so 1540 is just for 328 Main Street. They're actually requesting a separate allocation, separate
The
from number
994
340.
that's in the note, or is that just,
Is it on the note in the allocation
it says
spreadsheet?
comments, planning board hearing continued
Yes.
to 1/25/2024, 990 gallons per day, approved 5/30/2023. So I think they changed the project to increase it, which increased the gallonage, so
Did we give them an allocation previously?
that's,
That's a note
For
from
340, but not for
Tim.
328.
was 340 at the 990?
Yeah, 340 was originally gonna be
The gas,
just a gas station originally, right?
in the housing behind it.
Right. And then
I'd
it
have to go
changed.
back and look.
Yeah, so
That's for 340 though, that's not for 328.
Well, 340 is 7920, and that's phase two, and then 340 is 3,095. And this, I don't know what the 328 was. I'd have to go back and look if we,
Well, 328 was a single family
Yeah,
unit.
it was just a little dwelling. That was what was 320, it was that, we had it on the blight.
was it a bait shop at one time?
Oh, yes.
That's next
Yeah,
door.
Next door, okay.
Yep. That was where the gas station is. So the bait shop was the gas station, and then 328 was actually the small house that was a cottage there, if you will.
Yeah.
I think we could defer to the next meeting
I
and
think-
more info.
Yeah, it's
I
always-
think we'd
Clarify,
like to
yeah.
defer this allocation until we get a little more clarification. I think that you're right. I think the 7 should stay as one, and then the units behind should probably stay separate, and then, what is it, 340 should be separate also. I think that's the way to do it, because there's 3 separate entities, by the way it looks on the plans. If you wanted to combine the 7 with the townhouses, that might be okay, but rather than trying to upgrade 340, I think that's just not, I think that's a lot of upgrading to do.
Well, they definitely need to upgrade the pipe in the road.
Right.
The only other concern that, not to throw a monkey wrench in the conversation, but if Scenic Park comes online, are we gonna be upgrading that again, or could I have permission to reach out to them and just see what their schedule is?
I think that's
Just so if we
important.
need to roll that into this, instead of replacing the pipe twice, we're only doing it once.
Well, because that's the end of our pipe, so from 340 down to where Scenic Park connects, we're gonna be looking to make some changes.
Okay.
In our own piping system, right?
Correct.
So, yeah, I think for our end, it's important that we reach out to Scenic Park and try and figure out where they're at, yeah.
Okay.
But as far as this one and 340, I think we need to have a conversation with them about maybe segregating the properties, even if they just do 2.
Okay.
I think that's probably a better option, but obviously, I refer to you on that. Peter?
I feel more comfortable once we have everybody in the same room, because
Yeah.
we have questions that we want answers to, so.
Even if they could have representation that has a good knowledge of what's going on, that would be fine. But I think for now, that's probably our best option.
So
Um,
with that, I make a motion to defer any action to the next available meeting.
All right, we have a motion and a second by Peter and Melissa. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, abstained? That is 400. Okay. Moving on. Preliminary sewer allocation request for 15 Bay Drive. If we look at this, this is a residential property on Taylor's Point. I think, is this the one with the parking? We used to have all the parking, yeah.
Yes.
So, they talked about this for a while, finally, looks like they're coming to fruition. Matt, anything in particular on this one?
It's just a 3-bedroom residential lot. They're only looking for 330 gallons per day. The one thing that came up, I do believe there's a representative here from the property.
Well, you know what, I know what you're gonna bring up, why don't we bring that up at the end?
Okay,
We'll let him have a conversation with us about the property itself. Sir, you're here to represent the property. Anything you have to add to what we have in our packet? Anything you think you need is necessary? maybe not.
Frank, are you able to?
Frank,
I think he's trying to unmute.
can you unmute?
Yes, hi.
Oh, there you go, Frank, thank you. Anything you'd like to add other than what you submitted? Anything you feel that's pertinent you'd like to discuss?
No, this house that I'm gonna be building, it's a 3-bedroom, and it's not gonna be my primary house. It's gonna be basically a secondary house.
Okay.
So, so you mentioned 330 gallons.
Yep.
How did you come up with that?
Matt, do you want to take that?
110 gallons per day per bedroom.
Okay,
It's Title V regulations.
okay.
So, Frank, that's a state regulation, Title V, that we follow. That's how we set most of our preliminaries, as well as, if you go online, you can see the form, and then if you go in our policy and procedures, it breaks it all down for you.
Okay, sure.
Okay, so Matt, I know what you're going to bring up, if you want to bring that in.
Yes, so to start out with, as we were going through putting a cost to this project, we realized the regulations actually don't have any fees for residential units under $500. Under 500 gallons per day, other than the $100 connection fee. I just wanted to, so there only will be paying $100 to connect to sewer. There's no betterment fees, there's no preliminary allocation fees, and there's no system development fees with a residential unit. I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that.
Yep, so Matt and I discussed this briefly. This was brought to our attention previously. We had discussion about this previously, and I think it was probably, Peter, you would have been here, but MJ, I don't think you were here yet. This came up once before on residential connections. There are no fees associated with it other than the $100 connection fee. And it was supposed to be stayed and brought up again, but it has not been. So we're gonna put this on for another discussion. Frank, this does not necessarily apply to you. Obviously, your connection is good. You're all set as far as that part of it goes, but for us, I apologize, we're just doing a little house cleaning here. Matt, we'll put that on maybe
Okay.
after, probably after, I don't know, do we have room coming up soon?
There's one on April 30th,
No, 24th
24th, okay.
will be sewer.
Yeah, let's put it on for that. Yes.
So I have two questions. First of all, I want to make a comment on the application, question J. Source of property water supply, it says town. There is no town water. There is only the Buzzards Bay Water District. It is not a town entity. It is a separate entity. So just so you know, you're not getting town water.
Frank, you should, Frank, let me clarify that. So, when most people buy a house, they assume that when it's provided by the town. But our water departments are run separately. There are several of them throughout the town. Much like we have 10 villages, we have several water departments. Your water department would be Buzzards Bay Water Department. And just for your reference, okay?
Okay.
So, and then my second question, it has to do with development on Taylor's Point.
Yes.
Because is there not some sort of limitation as part of that's part of our sewer system grant from,
FEMA.
yeah.
We had a discussion about that, and it was about this property, because we were having, and you might have been here. We were having a discussion about this property because it came up with, it's the wind and all of those different factors, as well as the stay on Taylor's Point that may have been implemented. But when we had that discussion, we decided that that was not any longer. So because it was an existing property that was
Is
in
it
the
a new
sewer
connection
system.
to sewer?
Yes.
Yes,
Was it, no betterment's ever been paid?
No.
no.
I don't know, you have houses built in the mid to late 80s that had to put their own IA, alternate septic systems in.
Yes.
I mean, Joe Carrara,
There are
Paul
several
Doherty's
still
old
out, yeah.
house, and there's a house on right lane on the
What did we
right-hand
say,
side.
it was like
At least
4?
three, at least three.
Yeah.
It may be four, because I'm thinking.
So we did have this discussion before. It's probably up, well, that would be on Tim.
I think
Probably.
it's a question for town council, because I don't want to connect someone to the sewer that we're not supposed to be connected to.
There was
the
a
sewer.
stay that was under discussion about this for further connections, but I don't, in our previous discussion, I believe that we found that this connection was still able to be made. But it is something that we should ask about, because there was a hold on any property connections on Taylor's Point at one point.
A lot of them have been raised and rebuilt, but this is
Yes.
this is a new connection altogether where no betterments were ever paid.
Okay,
Right.
so let us look into that.
So, Frank, we're gonna delay you, and I apologize for that. I think we're gonna delay you until our next meeting for approval, until we make sure that we're covered on our end legally. If there's a stay on connections, we don't wanna approve a connection and try to renege afterwards, or retract that, if you will. So, I believe the board's understanding is that right now, we're gonna put you on hold for 30,
Well,
20.
so we have, for residential, we have a 2% residential reserve, and those properties don't usually come before us for an allocation. They're allocated out of the 2% residential reserve of 6,000 gallons.
Yes.
So if there is some sort of determination that that stay is no longer valid, I mean,
Correct.
that's what we need to know. Is
That's
the-
the only thing that we need to
Is the stay valid or
know.
not valid?
Right.
And if it's no longer valid, then they
This
can
property
connect
would-
under the residential
Right.
reserve, and if it is.
This property would fall under the reserve, because that's exactly what it's for. There's
Right.
not, I mean, how many properties in, what would you say, like, less than 5 properties in Buzzards Bay that are still not developed? Or,
Well, Taylor's Point is one lot left in
yeah,
the whole point.
but I mean, in Buzzards Bay as a whole, I think
Oh,
there's,
Now, like maybe,
Not
in
that many.
in the sewer
So,
district, you
yeah.
mean? Yeah, probably 4 or 5, if that.
so, so yes, it would be covered under the reserve.
Right.
But, we need to find out for sure if there was a stay on it in any of the agreements, with Wareham and for Buzzards Bay Sewer.
And was it Wareham or was it a FEMA, did I
No,
hear?
it was FEMA, and I'd have to.
Yeah,
it was
so,
part of the funding
yeah, it was
source.
part of the FEMA, they had the
And I
high
feel
wind
it's on
speed
some of
something
those
and
maps.
something else, but I don't, if I remember correctly, this did not fall under the wind speed part of it, but it was something else. Peter?
I'll go in the clerk's office and see, and go back and see the original FEMA stuff, and I'll pull it up and read it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'll send it to the rest of you.
Yeah, we'll bring it up, and Frank, I feel that that's probably where we're gonna go. We're gonna hold you off until the next meeting.
And I'll talk to Barry, 'cause Barry was involved in the original FEMA
Yes.
application.
So, do I have a motion?
Motion to defer action to the next available meeting.
Second? Anyone? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, abstentions? We are 4-0-0. So Frank, we're gonna hold you off until the next meeting. I apologize. We just wanna make sure that we have the legal right to give you that allocation.
Will you know the next meeting?
Will you definitely know by the next meeting?
Nothing's a guarantee, but I really feel that we should be able to find it. We have had this discussion before, so it should be readily available.
And hopefully, we might even have the answer before the next.
Yeah, we may have the answer before that, and Matt will give you a call. Once we find it, Matt will give you a call and give you a heads up as soon as we find it.
Okay, great.
All right, Frank, thank you very much for coming this evening.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
thank you. All right, we are down to number 6, operational allocation 3-year review process. So, MJ, you were looking for a little clarification on this one, if I remember correctly. This one, we discussed the hotel, correct?
Yep.
So, Matt printed this up for us, and it shows the 3 years usage, peak usage, obviously was in July through September, all 3 of those years. It looks like they're pretty consistent around, if you look at total gallons for those months, 1,096 in '23, 1,219 in '22, and then 982 in 2021. So they're pretty consistent. The numbers look pretty good. As far as our updated allocation, we had originally set it at 15,243 gallons per day preliminary as of 2017. So there, looks like they're well within.
Yeah, I think we can reduce it, if I may, to the chair.
Yes.
I think we can reduce it. I think the question is, what is the equalization capacity at our wastewater treatment plant?
Within the tanks,
Yeah,
I don't have that exact figure.
do you have a ballpark?
We can treat up to, I want to say, 120,000 gallons.
Okay.
I believe that's the number. I can have that number for you definitively tomorrow. The way we came up with the peak calculation is we took the average day demand at the treatment plant and the max day. So our max day was 101,667 last year, and our average day was 43,811. So that's the difference between those two. So that peak factor accounts for the average day and then the
Right.
additional.
What was the first one? I'm sorry to interrupt.
So the average day demand is 43,811 over the year at the treatment plant.
Okay, thank you, that's all I needed.
And so that's the 2.3 peaking factor. And the 1.7 peaking factor is the next highest day, just for a comparison. Because that, a lot of times that highest day is an equalization issue at the tank. Sometimes it can be a little, it can be operator error.
There've been weird, like, they had us over capacity
Yes.
the first time they did it. And I think for me, the question is, if you look at the 1.7 peak at like 11,784, that's pretty close to the sort of like that July, September, 12,178 peak. So, and that, my question is, do we allocate based on the peak, or do we allocate based on sort of the normal use?
Well, or do you take an annual average and base it on that? Or do you, pick the high peak of July through September?
Right.
There's a couple other factors, if I may. So the the CWMP, they were using a peaking factor of 2.4 when they were estimating the available gallons per day at some of the treatment plants on the other side of the bridge.
Yeah.
Some of the smaller package plants. So that 2.4 was very close to the 2.3. I put this in draft form because one of the other issues that came up, when we talk about the peaking factor on this, we only have daily data from the wastewater treatment plant. We're not
Right.
including Hideaway. We have daily data from Main Street and Hideaway.
Yeah.
But the way it's been calculated over the years, it's just a meter totalization. They haven't actually daily added up how much
Right.
usage it is daily. So we can go back and recreate that, and it may level out this peaking factor. But I didn't know if you were comfortable with the way we were calculating the peaking factor before we went back and did that math, because that will be some time-consuming time to figure those figures. The other thing is when the 2.3, you are factoring in an error at the plant.
Yeah.
Because we're not treating all the flow going to Wareham, that'll most likely, if we add that in, lower that 2.3 to closer to that 1.7. Because we're not gonna see the fluctuations at the treatment plant, we're just seeing what we're putting out on a daily basis.
Right. I think, the safe estimation at this point is probably to go by the peak. I think that's the safest way to go right now.
I would recommend a 12,000, reduce from 12,243 down to, from 15,243 down to 12,000.
Down to 12, yeah.
And I think 12,000 I mean, we're kind of use what we calculate as the peak, and that
Well,
gives us
so
a safety factor.
If you look at
and-
23, though, and 23 was the highest, you look at the gallons per day in July through September, it's
Yep.
12,178. So, I mean, I most certainly think we can reduce it. I mean, I would even maybe 12.5 to be safe
Yeah, I was
until we
thinking
have better calculations. I mean, we're still new with the plant and our calculations and monitoring things. I would think that maybe 12.5, just to give us a little wiggle room, would probably be a safe estimate, but I leave it to the board. MJ suggested 12, I suggested 12.5. If anybody would like to make a,
Can I ask a question about
Yes.
this, though? So once we move this down to operational allocation, which is what we're gonna be doing, right?
yep,
So Keystone, we reduced theirs from whatever, I forget what the original was, but we reduced it down to 14.
14.
They're still not using, they're still not using 14, so,
which we can
yeah, but no,
revisit
that's
after
fine.
that 3-year, yeah.
But, we're not calculating them any longer in the 290,000 gallons per day. We took them out of that calculation. They become part of the 2022 gallons per day downtown actual usage. So really what's gonna happen is if we vote this operational allocation for the Hampton Inn at Cape Cod at 12,500 or whatever it is.
Whatever
doesn't-
it
You
is,
know,
yeah.
that's fine, I'm fine with 12,005. If we put it at 12,005, we're just gonna monitor between 12,005 and what their actual,
We're still gonna monitor their
user,
actual
what their
usage.
actual usage, but we're no longer gonna continue to have them in the operational allocation awaiting use. That 15,243 is gonna kind of come out of there.
Yeah, so
It's
essentially.
gonna move down, and
Right, so
so it's gonna
essentially
be
we
part of the
saved
actual.
2,000 gallons there, yeah.
Right, and so on this spreadsheet, we should be updating to the 2023 gallons per day downtown actual usage, whatever that was, from 114,002, and then move that. We're just gonna take Hampton Inn out of there, and we're just gonna track if they're still like following, because then their actual uses is what we're really tracking.
Correct, we'll just monitor
Yeah.
their actual usage from, because they're gonna have a permanent we're gonna change it from a preliminary to an actual or operational.
So I would make a motion that we set the operational allocation for Hampton Inn Cape Cod Canal at 12,500 gallons per day.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other conversation? Matt?
Did we want to call it operational allocations? Because I think we had this, or is it the actual 3-year review allocation?
It is a 3-year review allocation, but we do
It'd be-
3-year reviews, period, not just after preliminary.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I think it's the operational allocation. I don't know if we have
Become-
technically called it
Because I remember
something.
last meeting, we had the operational allocation is at the building permit stage.
Right,
Yeah, so if you, at
once you
operational
hit that 3
allocation and
years-
awaiting actual use, so, whatever you want to call that
I just
bottom
wanted to make
category.
sure.
yeah, so it would be operational.
Okay.
It's their actual usage
Okay.
would become their operational.
Actual use operational allocation.
Yes. So what we're basing this now is, we're using actual allocation, and that would become their operational
Right.
allocation. So that would be the correct terminology, and it actually shows it here on the sheet.
And I think it's good to then monitor that, because if we get in a situation in the future where we're running out of allocation, and it's consistently, we're seeing, you know, gallons per day where we've made allocations, but they're not using it, that we can, you know, prior to doing a moratorium, we would be able to adjust
Right,
that.
so Matt, I think we're supposed to revisit every allocation, not just preliminary, right? isn't it every,
You want to
no,
make something
just preliminary,
operational
right?
eventually.
Once they go from preliminary to actual or operational
Once we do the
allocation,
3-year thing, we set a new one.
it's over, yeah.
I mean, we can do it, but I don't think we have to do it
Yeah,
every 3 years.
I think if we were gonna do a moratorium or something, that's when
Yeah.
we would look into all of it, but, so it would become an operational, and then we don't see it again after this.
Okay.
This is it. So we had a motion, and we had a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, abstain, that would be 400. All right. We are on to the DPW Director Report.
Just a couple quick things. We have a contract in place with Beta for the pump replacements at Hideaway Village. That's been ongoing, but those contracts are signed, and we have a kickoff meeting next Friday. We have another engineering contract in place with EDR for the chemical feed pumps at Hideaway Village on the town side of the pumps. So we have a kickoff meeting for that on Tuesday. So that should, hopefully, we'll get that going as quickly as possible and eliminate those odors.
Yeah, do you have any other information on it? You are still looking into different, kind of.
We're gonna, it's all in the design phase now,
Okay.
so we're gonna design whatever the simplest and safest
Okay.
chemical feed design is for the staff we have.
Perfect.
Can I ask a question about the Beta pump replacement at Hideaway? So there was some back and forth about when that work was gonna be done. They're not planning on doing work in the summer, right? No, they're not gonna be tearing up any roads in the summer.
No, not at
So,
all.
I think we had tried to get it done before this
Yeah.
summer season, but I
We're
don't,
trying,
is it?
It's all
is-
bumped to the fall.
Yeah.
Okay, all right,
We're going to do meetings in the summer to include the residents,
okay,
public outreach meetings,
Good.
but no construction will start till next fall.
okay.
And I believe everything should be done by December 1st, or at least it should be bid by December 1st.
Awesome, thank you. That's good progress, because that's like ARPA, this is ARPA funding, and that's that
Yes.
ARPA project. and
Still an
it's,
ARPA fund, yeah.
It's that first step in the, ongoing grinder pump replacement.
grinder pump
To get them
issues.
standardized. Awesome, thank you.
Just one other thing, we're still reviewing the fog plans. They were due tomorrow. Most of them have come in. There's a few stragglers, and we'll reach out to them, and which I kind of suspected. But we'll work with them on. So far, everything. It's a work in progress. We're working forward to.
Just
complete
getting
it.
everybody to get them in first is probably the
Yeah.
first step.
But
It's great.
it's making people aware of what they're doing, which is good. We're getting a lot of questions, a lot of conversation.
Questions are good, that means
Yeah.
people are paying attention. I like that, that's good.
And that was all I had for the director's report.
That's it. Okay. Number 8, we're on to policy. Amending rules and regulations for application and design reviews. So in our packet, we had Matt sent to us as well as the town administrator, a couple of things. If you look at section 4.1, application required, there's some changes there. Matt, I will let you walk through this, if you will, since you made most of these changes.
So for section 4.1, based on the conversations of the previous few meetings, we did add language that will allow a project to modify or amend their allocation by just paying an application design modification fee. And in section 6.11, we also changed the language there just to follow suit with the change in section 4.1. So after they have an original allocation, an applicant is entitled to modify or revise the original application anytime in the future by submission of an application design modification fee. We were also asked to review the rates for applications. We currently have a $1,500 application fee that's standardized for all of our applications. So we went through and actually looked at the hourly time it takes, the union contracts, rates of pay, and overhead. And actually calculated out an estimation cost of what we believe our time and our cost is for each of these applications. So for a residential connection fee up to 500 gallons per day, I think we just spoke, there's not a lot of those left out there. But it was about 6 total hours of all of our time, including the town engineer, administrative staff, and the director's position. And that came to about $370 for that fee. For a residential connection fee, just over 500 gallons per day, 14 hours came to $960. Mixed use or commercial, figure about 19 hours combined staff time, comes to $1,310. We haven't done an industrial application yet, but we feel that's gonna be very complicated. That's gonna involve a lot of moving parts. So we figure that's gonna be about 24 hours of staff time to complete that application process. And based on the factors we use, that comes to about $1,660. For the application design modification fee, kind of averaged out, we figure a 4-hour minimum would be good for someone to come back and ask for a modification, and that's where we came up with the $245 for the design modification fee. One of the last things is, we don't use the preliminary allocation fee, so we're gonna eliminate that from the fee section of attachment C.
Extension.
Yes, I'm
Not
sorry,
the
yes, the extension, I'm
preliminary
sorry.
allocation.
The extension, I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah, the extension fee. So I will say, I think my suggestion originally was $250, so I feel pretty good about that $245. It was a pretty good guesstimate. Yeah, and this all looks really good. I like that we took a little time and tried to make them right and put an actual cost to them. Obviously, this is something that we're gonna have to probably modify on a regular basis, probably annually, I would think. So something to keep in the back of your mind. We'll probably have to do something like that annually. Any questions from Matt from the board?
I think this is really good. I mean, I feel like we kind of had thrown a number out at some point in time and it kind of stuck there and then there was confusion about it. And I think this does what it needs to do. I think there is work for the residential connection that's a new connection. I think we should
think-
have a fee for that, for
think so.
the application design. I think these sound reasonable, and I like the idea of a design modification fee. If they come in once, it's $245. If they come in twice, it's another $245.
Right.
They keep changing their building.
They
it's
keep changing
But
it,
it's,
yeah.
it covers the staff time and the staff hours, so I think that, I think this looks really good.
I think Matt did a really nice job, and it's very clear and concise, and I like that. It's very specific, actually, which is great. Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, no, it's great. We can't.
Matt, are you looking for us to vote on approving these for tonight? and
Yes, if
Be
you're
done with them? Okay.
Before we do a motion, I have a question just because of the conversation with the residential reserve thing. Do we need to say something about that? That a residential under 500 gallons per day, or is it in the regs now that it comes from the residential reserve and an allocation vote by
I
the
don't
sewer
think there's
commissioners is
anything
not
in there.
required?
No.
No.
I mean, we can do this and then make another change if you want, but I think somehow we have to, it's been
The
past practice.
allocation would fall
Ye-
under that.
Yeah, that
So any new connection going forth would
for
be
residential
for
under
residential
500
connection.
gallons per day, if it's coming out of that 2% residential reserve.
Well,
Even
and I-
when we take it, even when we give them 330, we still leave that at 6,000. So
You don't want to approve those connections, though?
I don't think we ever have we?
I think we should approve them. I think we should approve them, but it shouldn't be
It's just coming
just
out
a
of the reserve.
formality, yeah.
Okay, so it's not an allocation, but we do approve them and, okay,
And
okay,
it would approve it coming out of that.
all right.
Yeah.
Coming out of the residential
Correct.
reserve, okay. Then we don't need to change things then.
Yeah, I think it would just be an approval to come out of that.
Right,
Yeah.
so there's no allocation fee for that because it comes out of the
Right.
the residential reserve.
Correct, yes.
Okay,
So, any fee changes are not gonna affect the gentleman that was here already. Obviously, he's paid his fees, he's good, but going forth, that would be the new plan. All right, if there's nothing else, take a motion?
Motion to approve the amendments to the sewer use rules and regulations and application and design review fees, application and design modification fee, and the elimination of the preliminary allocation extension fee as presented.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? None, so it is 400. We are good on that.
Thank you very much.
Matt, job well done as always.
We will update the definitions and the flow chart now that you guys have approved those.
Okay.
That was a discussion at the last meeting also.
Okay. Next is Sewer Enterprise Fund Financial Policy. This was something that, MJ, again, you were curious about trying to have some sort of, how do we set this? A policy that suggests how much we should or shouldn't have, correct? Isn't that kind of where we were going?
Yeah, to have more definition.
How do we define what we should have, or percentage, or a certain minimum, if you will? And I have to say, we've been through this discussion a few times, and it's really kind of hard to tell at this point. I think we're still kind of new with everything. I'm not sure that, I'm not sure that I can really nail down something that I can say, I think we should have this, and that's personally. I think we're still kind of new with the whole system that we have, and we have a lot of influx coming in right now financially that could essentially go to this. So I don't know what everybody's thoughts are, and I think I'll start with Matt and see if he has any comments.
So I'll just make a few quick comments. We only made 3 changes really to the financial policy that was in place, and it really just had to do with retained earnings. Based on the previous conversation, I think MJ had recommended possibly a 3-month expenses to keep in the retained earnings. That comes out between $333,000 and $400,000, depending on if we calculate FY '23 or FY '24. It's kind of an estimation of what you'd keep in retained earnings. We also added, there was a capital stabilization fund created at the 2017 fall town meeting. There currently hasn't been any deposits into that.
Right.
So it's there. So the thought was, when we receive our capital, the fees for new connections.
System
Yeah,
development.
system development. I can
fees,
remember,
yep.
we deposit directly into the stabilization fund. We could
And
do
then-
that, if that was something, we could do that one of 2 ways. There is a mechanism in place where it can be approved at town meeting and at the state level, where if those come in as system development fees, it can be deposited directly into the stabilization fund and not count towards retained earnings. Or it can just go to retained earnings and we can calculate that amount each year and just take that amount and at town meeting deposit that into the capital stabilization fund.
So, if I'm trying to remember some of the discussion, it was easier to move it from one way to the other than the other to the other, right?
I guess.
Stabilization and,
It's 2/3 stabilization, I believe, to take it out of there. Retained earnings is just a majority, I believe.
So I have a couple.
MJ,
Yeah, so I like I like quantifying the working capital 3 months of operating expenses, and we can look at it and say for the budget next year, we should have whatever, the operating budget is, figure that out. I like having that in there. I am not currently in favor of making any requirement that 100% of the revenue from sewer development charges be deposited into that fund.
stabilization?
Yeah, I don't think we have enough users in the system to do that yet. I think we still need to think about using those system development charges to help support some of the debt service until we get another 150 users. So I would not add that to the policy at this time. I'm not even ready to do 50%. And the question of doing it automatically depositing it, I might be willing to do, in the future. If you don't do it automatically, there's a delay. So we'd get the funds this year. They'd have to get certified as retained earnings in July, and then we could transfer them to this is why we haven't put any money in there. Transfer them to the sewer capitalization fund in November, but we couldn't use them again until that was certified the
Right.
following July. So it's very, for right now, I just say leave it in just leave it in retained earnings.
Retained earnings right now, and I agree. I think we're a little too early, and I think as far as setting a certain amount, I don't think we're quite there yet, but I think it's safe to make sure that we don't drain it below, like you were saying, what would you say, 3 something?
3 months.
Yeah, 3 months.
3
is
months, which was like.
350.
Yeah.
For next year's budget, I did 355, 859. So
Yeah, I think I think that's a safe way to do it for now. I don't think that we set anything other than that. I think that we keep them going into the enterprise fund for now. I don't think we're quite there where we have enough, and we have enough users that we're able to start manipulating.
Yeah, we still are straining that.
We're still using it, yeah.
And I have one other thing to say, that the other thing is, a lot of times you can add a capital component to, have the 5-year capital plan or something. The problem is we don't really have a 5-year. I mean, we do have $1 million worth of things on our 5-year capital plan.
Yes.
But some of that is $425,000 for doing the grinder pumps at Taylor's Point, and we probably will borrow for that. I mean, I
Yes.
don't think we're gonna pay for that $425,000 out of retained earnings. So how would that figure? How do you figure what's the appropriate, like if we did 3 years of the capital plan, it's 300,000? And so you go 300,000 plus 355. I think it's a measure of, we look at it and say, we've got 3 years of capital in retained earnings, plus we've got 300, we've got our working capital. And so are we comfortable using retained earnings for the users to support the user rates? And I think the answer is yes, but it gives you some benchmarks.
But I think it's important that we're having this conversation, because we can then have it again when we're in a little bit better position to be able to move some of that funding around. But I don't think that we have enough funding right now where we're really able to move things back and forth. And so I think right now, everything goes into the enterprise fund. We leave it and use it as,
We'll just get it, let's just
Yeah.
keep doing the retained earnings thing.
yeah.
I like the suggestion, but I'm
But
not ready.
I like the fact that you came up with the calculation so that we have a benchmark to at least leave. Let's not go below that or whatever.
Okay.
At least we had put in something here. And the rest of it was kind of cleaned up stuff. I'm fine with the reserve fund of budgeted at 5% and with a minimum allocation of 100,000. I think that makes sense, so.
And thank you for the red line version. It is a little easier to read.
Okay.
I appreciate that. Yeah, is there anything else from anybody else on the board? Any other questions? I think those were the two biggest things that were on here. There was, a few things that were cleaned up.
So I'll make a motion to approve the recommended sewer enterprise fund policy as presented, except not to include the bullet for the sewer capital stabilization.
Automatic. What do we call it?
Depositing of sewer system development charges.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Matt, are you good with that?
That's fine, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, abstain? That's 400. All right, that is good. And then, Okay, and then the partial reimbursement of recently paid application and design review fees. Those were the two properties on Main Street?
That's correct, yes. 46 Holt Road and 89.
Oh, so one was on Main Street and
Yeah,
one
I'm
was
sorry,
on
Holt Road, yeah.
I apologize.
Holt Road, 93B Main, and what about 328 Main? Because he paid 1,500.
He's, the 320 is a separate parcel.
Yeah,
It's separate from it's
Yeah,
two
okay.
parcels, he's just purchased them both. So 328's a
Okay.
total,
Yeah, so
it's
they're
a separate
totally
total, yeah.
Same owner, but different property.
No, I'm just saying that we've just changed that fee to $960 from 1,500. Do we want to give that?
Oh, okay.
That's all I'm saying.
Oh, I see, okay.
I see what
So
you're
he
saying.
would pay 960 instead of
Yes, so that would be a correction also.
Okay.
960.
We'll have
And
to
then
add
for the Holt and the 93
Nine-
would be just would they just recharge the 245,
Yeah, so they would be refunded,
whatever.
yes,
1,500
whatever the
minus
difference
245.
is, and then I'll have to add 328 into there, 328 Main Street.
But his 340, he's gonna have to pay 245.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
he'll have to pay a 245 for a change, if that's what we end up doing.
Yeah.
He may, 340, he may end up staying the same.
Yeah, he
and then
might
do
not.
two other connections, but, yeah.
I mean, he might not leave it, he might leave it until such time as they're actually gonna be occupied and pay the 245 then. but-
What about 15 Bay Drive?
That stays, he already paid his fees, and even though we're adjusting him, he paid his fees already, and it's less than what it was, right?
Well, he didn't pay, right?
No, everyone that's applied has paid the 1,500 on. So 15 Bay Drive paid 1,500, he hasn't paid his connection fee yet.
Oh, he paid 1,500, okay.
Yeah.
He did? I thought he didn't pay anything because he was a resident.
Residential.
No, they still have to pay the application fee. So the residential pay the application fee and the connection fee, so they pay,
I
so he
was,
paid 1,500 and then 100.
Oh, okay.
I didn't think he paid the 1,500, so I was confused. So
I-
if he
I'm sorry.
paid 1,500.
Yes, then there
we
would
would
be-
refund him the difference between
Correct.
that and the
I thought he paid
370.
yes.
I'm sorry, no,
We were both under the same thought process. Okay, so if somebody would like to make a motion for partial reimbursement and/or partial reimbursement of recently paid application and design and review fees for the properties at 328 Main Street, 93B Main Street,
Yes.
47 Holt Road,
46.
47?
6.
Is it
46
It's
Holt.
46 Holt Road, and, what am I missing?
I don't think the one tonight was even in that.
15 Bay, right?
15 Bay Drive.
15 Bay Drive. Okay, those are the four.
Second.
So moved, right? You have to move.
Did you-
Oh, did MJ already? Okay.
So we have a motion and a second?
Sure, whoever.
Yeah.
I heard so moved. Who so moved it?
I said so.
Okay.
Melissa.
So Melissa and then Peter seconded. There we go. Let me just make sure we keep it. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? That's 400. So those reimbursements will be made. We don't have any minutes. Oh, wait, I'm missing one. Number 10, discuss draft letter to CCI WPF to seek 25% reimbursement for Bourne's portion of future Wareham capital upgrade. So we have a copy of that letter.
Yeah, we have it here, but we should say what CCIWPF
Yes.
means.
Cape Cod and Islands Water Protection Fund.
Yeah, for the people at home.
So this is something we've been trying to do a number of times. We've talked, well, I should say, we've talked to them a number of times about getting some of that funding, because we fall within that because we're in Plymouth, or Barnstable County, but there was always an issue because we're paying our fees to Wareham, who's in Plymouth County.
So we did meet, Marlene and I did meet with Nate Keenan and some people from Cape Cod Commission on this. The issue is, we're trying to find an administrative fix, not a legislative fix for this, because that opens up the whole thing, and they really don't want to go in that direction.
Right.
So we need to figure, we don't know what can be done at the Clean Water Trust, But it may be that there is a different accounting so that the Bourne portion is actually paid to the Clean Water Trust by Bourne instead of us paying Wareham.
Right.
And which may then require, if we can get that administrative fix done, votes at the fall town meeting so that we can get the funding. So we're still working on it. I think that Marlene just wanted to document
Yeah,
that we
this
still
is-
wanted to have this discussion, and it was good to document it.
So this letter, I think, is just to document it, and that we're requesting from them.
Right.
A black and white copy that's requesting it. I don't see any issues with it. I think it's great. So-
Motion that we authorize the chair to sign the draft letter on behalf of the board and send it out.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second, sure.
Motion and a second. Any other further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? That's 400. Okay, we have no minutes. Does anybody have correspondence they'd like to share?
There's none here in our packet.
No. Future agenda items, what did we discuss earlier?
Residential fees,
Yep,
residential connection fees,
and I think that's it, right?
yes.
Okay. Any committee reports anybody would like to share? All right. Next meeting date is April 30th,
So I don't
that
think
right?
that's correct.
I
I
don't
think
think so.
the next meeting date's the 24th.
24th, right?
Yeah, because the 30th is the legislative update,
Yeah.
so I think the fourth Tuesday is the 24th,
Yeah.
and the fifth Tuesday is the 30th.
I think so. I think we're the 24th. so,
Yeah.
Just for clarification. All right, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second?
Motion and a second. We are adjourned. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you.